Hey everyone, I wanted to give you a brief update on some progress I'm making with my NLRB research tool. The first thing that I wanted to highlight here is this stuff right here, where you can do linear searches on specific columns. I really hate that. I also don't like the idea of like compounding these things. So like you can start with like name contains right line, which works okay. And I mean, in this case, it'll be fine. I think there's only a few documents. There's 4, right? But then you say, oh, I also want to look at the citation because I want to narrow it further. And I know the citation includes, 251 NLRB, right? And it just kind of builds and builds on itself. And it's kind of slow. Not a fan, right? See, that took 1.9 seconds, all right? And just in general, like accumulating stuff like that and having to go through multiple steps and having to use your mouse. Maybe this is the Linux guy in me. I'm not a real fan of all that. So what I wanted to do was set it up so that you would just use the search box. So, I mean, in future versions, I'm probably going to remove this part altogether, but just a long list of search box stuff, sort of like command line, just one command, right? And the way I did this to make it work, so where you can kind of search a column, it's a little like tricky and clever. It's not exactly what it seems like, but it works the way it seems like, is I created another column, which is this search column here, which I'm going to hide in a minute for, visual purposes. And the column just takes each row just takes each column for that row and puts the value there. So we got type, published board decision. So you see we get type, public board decision. And then we get date here, and then date here. You see, so it's just like the column, colon, and then the value. And when we put it all in one field here, it becomes you can kind of goof around. You can essentially search by column. Technically, you're searching by prefixes, or you're effectively searching by prefixes. But anyways, we don't need to go into all that. Instead, we'll just see how this works. Okay. So remember the right line thing. I keep going back to this just because this is what the first thing I started my other video. When we search right line, we get 5,846 rows. That's not a bad outcome because a lot of times we're looking to find the cases that cited right line. We want to see those cases, right? But now let's say you wanted instead to find the case itself. I already showed you can do this linear search where you do name, contains, all this clicking, and then it's a linear search as opposed to the full text search, like the indexing stuff. Not a fan, right? So instead, what we'll do is we'll just do name colon, boom. There it is, right? And we can do the same for Oakwood Healthcare. That's the one for supervisory status. Cool. These are all the cases that are citing them. They're in chronological order. That's fine, but I want to find the case itself. So we'll go Oakwood Healthcare. Look how quick that is, right? And here, right, we have a regional election decision and we have a published board decision. The published board decision is obviously the one that matters, but just to kind of show you how you can combine these things. If we do that, see, we're just going to get that. And this is like pretty valuable for a number of reasons, including, let's say you just want to search a particular document type, right? So we'll start, a lot of times you might just want to search the published board decisions, right? So we can just right off the bat start with that, and that's going to narrow us down to 66,000 rows. And then we can start doing our full text search, from there. So it's super valuable, and years work this way as well. So like, let's see, the Stericycle one, remember from last time. Let's say, we search it, And the hell? Oh, that's the wrong. Oh. We search it. Okay, we get all these rows, and these are some of them are citing it. Some of them, the cases themselves are called Stericycle. This is a regional election decision, right? But if we're trying to find the case itself, right, we might go ahead and open this up, and sometimes you can just put the site in, and that's what we did yesterday. So you could just put the site in, and I mean, it works more or less, except see, this gets all the cases that cite it. That's fun, but if you go to the bottom, you'll find the case you're looking for. So that's one easy way to do it. But another way to do it is, you can start with the date. And here you're going to start with the year, because we know it's 2023, right? And we also know that it's a published board decision. And we want to put the name, right? So in 2023, there were 2 published board decisions that had the name Stericycle in them. And that's, click through, see which one it is, right? Very simple. The other thing is I added some interesting types here. So I'm kind of thinking, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could just sit in the database and do everything, not have to go to the website, not have to do anything, okay? So I added 2 new types of documents. These are, I don't know, you'll see. So one of them is manuals. And that just are these right here. It just watches this page. And whenever anything comes on this page, anything's added to it, it gets added. And so that's, anyone who's practiced at the NLRB knows these manuals are really useful. And you can full text search all of them, right, at the same time, right? So maybe you're looking for a particular manual. Oh, I want the case handling manual for ULPs. No problem. There it is, right? Or if you just want to see, because these manuals are super helpful, like if something's in the manual, these are essentially outlines of board law, so that the board itself has put out. I don't know, they're nice. They're nice to use. So I'll choose one that I know already, because this was a case I was involved in. This was the Federalist case, and there it is in the NLRB ALJ bench book, right? We can go ahead and open that. And what do we get? This is now the leading case for the proposition that a charge may be filed by anyone. So in the Federalist case, a charge was filed against Ben Domenech for a tweet that was threatening retaliation for union activity. And his lawyer, or the Federalist lawyer, in their defense, argued that the complaint should be dismissed because the charging party was nothing more than a random person on the internet who saw the publisher's allegedly unlawful tweet. The board rejected the argument, as the clear and unambiguous weight of both the board and Supreme Court authority holds that anyone may file a charge. So that's now a sort of like the extreme end of who can file a charge. Random person on the internet may do it. Of course, I already knew that. So we got manuals. That's cool. Searching through the manuals is pretty awesome. And then we can also do, and then I have another category for statute, which is really statute and regulations. This is pretty narrow, but we've got the NLRA, full text search that. We've got these 3 parts of the Code of Federal Regulations, which are the NLRB related parts. So like if we search supervisor, it comes up here, the NLRA. You can click on it, takes you to the text of it on the NLRB website, and then you can see supervisor. Who knows? Could be helpful. And of course, these things will also be, if you do a search of everything, these things might come up, right? Let's take a quote from here and see if we can try to find something that probably won't be in a case. This page also has a few other statutes on it as well that are in this part of the U.S. Code. I don't know. Let's just quote this and see if it works. There it is. So yeah, that's pretty much it. with this setup now, where you can do stuff like this, where you can kind of effectively search each column and then append these things on top of one another, I think we can get rid of all this. Everything will be done through full text search. You're not having to do multiple text boxes or anything like that. Just be super, super fast. And like one obvious way to do it is just to kind of narrow like we did here, right? Like we started with Stericycle. Oh, it was too big. And then we switched it to name, Stericycle, and then date, and then, whatever, right? So you can kind of progressively narrow your search, right? You start at 90,000 documents, and then you can either just put in a phrase that will search all the fields, right? So if you don't put anything in it, it'll just search all of the fields. I think we did this before. That's just going to search all of the fields. But then from there, you can add on to it. Okay, I only want published board decisions. Type published, because there's a lot here. There's a bunch of ALJ decisions, all that, right? Published board decision. That's going to be something that's going to trick some people. Yeah. So see, we get only the published board decisions, or maybe we just want to see the ALJ decisions, and we get only the ALJ decisions, right? Start with the phrase, and then you can narrow on document type, or you can start with the document type and then narrow on the phrase. It doesn't matter. The order doesn't matter. These are all like ands. And you can also search for a person, for a judge, right? I don't know. Maybe you have that judge. You want to see what they're all about. ALJ, Susanna Merritt. There are her 4 cases that are in my database, at least. The ALJ stuff doesn't necessarily go back too far, right? 2013. They weren't putting all those on the web for a long time, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I think, with this was the big thing I was struggling with. If you watched the last video, it was just like, how do we search columns? And I was editing the URL, and I was trying to think, what is the interface here? Because I don't want to make it super clunky like this. I don't want to have to revert to linear searches. And I think this basically gets it jumped. Now, I should emphasize here, it looks like and acts like a search of the column, but it is ultimately a text search of this column here that I hid. It's ultimately a text search of this column, and so you got to think about it that way. So here's a good example of where you could run into problems. I mean, these are just. So let's say I wanted to search for the Boeing case, because that was the case that preceded Stericycle. So we can put Boeing in there, and we're going to get a lot of cases here, that, include the name Boeing. So here's a good example where you can break out, right? So somewhere in this case, it's picking up, there's some text that says name Boeing. Let's see if we can find it. Sometimes these are kind of phantom in here, but name Boeing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. Anyways, for the most part, we got what we want, but I know for a fact that some of them are under the Boeing company. You see what I'm saying? It's not actually a search of the column. It's a prefix. It's essentially a prefix search of the column. But 99% of the time, that's all you're going to be needing anyways. And if you really, really want to, and you're in one of those goofy 1% cases, and you're like, I think this place also sometimes has a "the" in front of it that may not get picked up, then you can, like we did before, go on up here and go ahead and put, whoops, I didn't full text search index that. But we can actually go ahead and well, anyways, sorry, I forget exactly what was the strategy for dealing with that. I think what you could do here is you could, so what you would do is you would take this and you'd put another search by it, because now we are full text searching just that, right? Because we don't want the text stuff. And then, since you've identified that up here, you don't have to put name. You could just put Boeing, and I think that's going to work. Oh, whoops. We got to put it up here. There it is. Now we get all of it. Like, I just wanted to emphasize that because I recognize there is a trade-off to doing it this way, where you're basically using like a prefix search in order to approximate a column search. I do realize there's like a 0.1% scenario where it's not exactly how you might want it, where the company is sometimes reported as Boeing Company or other times the Boeing Company. But the simplicity of this is way worth that particular issue, which is super narrow. And there is still a solution to it. If you really want to do it, you can just pop up here and edit the URL. Like I said, comments, whatever, feedback, all that stuff I'm very interested in. So let me know, and I'm gonna keep plugging away. I think it's getting close. I think probably next step, remove all this stuff, and throw it up on a website, see how that goes.